Welcome to TradersArmy.com, defending your right to build wealth and preserve capital for generations to come. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Daily Market Commentary. I'm your host, Chuck Fulkerson. Hope you guys all had an amazing weekend. Let's go ahead and dive right in as we do what we do each and every day for our futures markets. Now, remember, last night we had a live trade room, and I talked about the fact that we would review some of these levels that hit in the overnight areas if there was something to talk about, and lo and behold, there is. As we sold off pretty hard last night, so let me go ahead and jump in to this market. So the S&P last night, towards the end of our session, as we were doing our options positions, really sold off hard. Big, strong sell-off. We came into the demand area, which I wasn't feeling overly confident about to begin with, and then just got a little tiny bounce out of it. And my thoughts is that our big picture is trading to the downside, and so primarily we should be looking at confirmation entries overall. And then we came to the 15-minute level and based in front of that level in the overnight hours, and now both of those levels certainly no validity in those zones. So we're seeing prices continue to fall. Now, a couple people took the short last night on a candle-to-candle opportunity, and if you're still in that, then I would take your stop and move it down to above this pivot high right here at 29.07, just to lock in some of that gains that you had in the overnight hours. We've come down to 28.94. We're down 38 points this morning, so we're going to open up significantly lower, and there's a chance I think that the markets are going to continue to trade lower from there. If you want a shot to get back into this thing, and maybe you've missed out on some of this move, first of all, don't chase. Chasing is definitely a tough path, but I would be okay with looking at a breakout or a candle-to-candle entry as a way to get into this position. From a 15-minute chart, there's a little level right here where you may see a bit of a reversal above this high. So actually, if you're still in the short, leave your stop above that little bit of a supply area right here. This could blow through, but then you might get another little reversal right in here. But at the very least, look for a candle-to-candle or a breakdown. Next, the NQ. So in the NQ, we had a confirmation long, which went right through, which is why we do confirmations. And so we're starting to reverse off of that as prices are continuing to go lower in the NQ. When I look at this on a daily chart, we see that the next level of demand in the NQ, we're coming close to that area, but we're not quite there yet. It's about 75.16 as the next level of demand in the NQ. We talked last night about the 2900 level of this daily chart and why we didn't feel like that was a great demand area. So I think there's a chance that prices do continue to fall a little bit more in the S&P as of today. Crude oil. Last night we looked at, if you were so inclined, you could possibly take a breakout above this area. I still think that that's a valid spot to get long if that indeed shows up, but not a whole lot to add other than that. And then in gold, we rallied up in the overnight sessions, continued its slight move higher. You may get a little opportunity right in here. At midnight, we put in this speed candle, and now we could come down and get a little bit of a hit off of there. So keep an eye on that one, although I think the breakout long is the better trade. When we look at bonds and currency markets, so the bonds, we had talked about the best trade overnight was the bond area, and we had talked about the fact that there's a chance that we will base in front of this level, and that's exactly what we did. We got a little bit of basing and then a very nice strong breakout above this area as we did get our basing right below this area, and then price moved out of here really well. If you opened that one up before bed and maybe you're still in that, take your stop, move it up underneath this area, as that breakout did, was a very effective move. And then the next trade would be another breakout to the upside. And really, all of these bond growth is based on the fact that our yield is falling. And so this is typically when we see fairly deep market pullbacks, when we see bond growth like this. In the Aussie, so the Aussie, we are continuing to fall as well. I would look at a candle-to-candle opportunity in the Aussie. I think that you've got a couple of different places that make this one somewhat encouraging. This would be our next closest supply area, but also look candle-to-candle on here if you think this one's a bit too close. In the euro, we came back up into this level last night, and we did a little bit of a touch. Now, I had an alert set up in the euro right here, and the alert didn't trigger for me until my head was on my pillow. But I did notice this a little bit last night before bed. As we came up, we touched it, we moved away, and then we came back close to it again. And then I said, that looks to me like basing before a level, so I think that level's going to fail. And so had the alert on, no intentions of getting into that position unless we came back out of the trade, looking at it from a confirmation style. So for those of you that were in the room last night, that's exactly what we talked about. And price blew right through that area. So now let's look to see if we get some basing in front of here for a breakout to the upside. And if we do not, then I think this little area here where we did break above, this little wick over wick, could serve as a reversal trade. Canadian dollar, not a whole lot to lean on this Canadian dollar level, so nothing really to add in that market. In our other positions, nat gas, copper, Great British Pound, yen. Nat gas, we talked about a gap and go strategy. This gap and go is still very much in play, by the way. Just because we've come above here, I still think this gap and go can still be in play. Whereas if we get below the first candle's low, you've got an opportunity for a short. This is something that we saw happen in nat gas a lot earlier in the year, where it didn't really make entry for even a day and a half sometimes, but it's still in play. In the Great British Pound, we actually did come up into the pound level that we were kind of looking at, based, and we've gotten a little bit of a reversal off of that pound zone. So if you took that one, I would also on this one move your stop to break even. Japanese yen, a little bit of a continual move higher. I said last night I didn't really want to chase, and this is exactly why, because as we looked at it last evening, we were right about here, and it did nothing since then, knowing it was overextended. So that level is still in play all the way down in here, which is the base rally. All right, so that is all I have for today. Make sure that you keep an eye today on our private trade feed as the trades that we identify that are going to come out and look for these opportunities. Interesting how much movement we saw in the overnight sessions, because we started the class last night when the market was only down, the S&P was only down 3 points. We've dropped 36 points since then, and there's really not a level of demand to stop us from continuing to go lower. So keep an eye on your positions. Make sure that you maintain some of those hedges if you've got some. As now we are still, when I go and look at the VIX, we're starting to see a pretty strong rise in that VIX. And we talked about this the other day. The VIX is now sitting up. It's going to be, we'll probably be up here around 24 today in the VIX once the options markets do indeed open, the equity options. So there's a tremendous amount more fear, and it's just in large part due to these tariffs that have been occurred. And this could just be, from a macro fundamentals level, a pressure to lower the rates, right? A pressure again to just continue those rates, and that seems to be what's kind of going on in this market, and we'll see what happens from that perspective. But if you have any questions, please send us email support@trading.com.